Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. We are smack dab in the middle of December, and we are just about a week removed from national season. So today I want to recommend to you guys some rogue decks to try out for the end of the year. This will be including some data from the national tournaments that we covered here on the channel, as well as some other decks that I don't think you guys will be expecting at all, that I think are very, very fun and somewhat well positioned. I mean, of course, we're in a pretty defined meta where Crimson Goku seems to be by far and away the best deck, but of course there's still Sin Shenron, of course there's still SS4 Gogeta, but there are some decks that I think are well positioned and also just fun to try out and mess around with. I mean, we're pretty much in the competitive off season, so it's worth going to locals and just trying out some new things, playing some fun stuff until possibly get a ban list or start seeing the cards for the next set. So yeah, I'm still a little bit sick here, guys, so if I sound different, sorry about that. If I'm a little bit nasally, I'm gonna try to get through this as best as I can, but yeah, persistent cold that I've had ever since I got back from Nats. Can't believe it. But anyways, we'll get into it in today's video. If you guys are new here, though, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel and you're looking to buy any cards we talk about in today's video, please do feel free to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It really does help me out greatly, and I really, really do appreciate it. Anyways, let's jump right on into things. The first deck we are talking about is Green Cooler. Now, this is a pretty hot topic considering it came in second place at the Australian National Tournament. Second place to Crimson, of course, but this deck was beating Crimson throughout Top Cut. And there's a very interesting matchup discussion to be had there. I touched on it a little bit in the meta breakdown video from the other day, but whenever blue kind of creeps up and seems to be overly dominant, a lot of people gravitate towards green because hand control does seem to do pretty well into blue more often than not. Now, I won't say Cooler is a pure hand control deck. It's not anything like Cell Surge was back in the day, but Cooler still does have those elements of hand control that help pick at the blue decks. And if you play it very stally, like this Australian player did going into this event, you can actually give Crimson a pretty hard time between stalling its Awaken and keeping it at low hand size. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there in that regard. Of course, there's a card like Gohan Latent Power, which is just a one card Boo Unison killer. That is a huge appeal to this card. But yeah, just being able to clear almost any Unison in the game for one card, or one card and maybe one leader attack or one more battle card attack is really enticing. And the way this deck was able to put on pressure was also nothing to scoff at either. I talked about this play specifically in the breakdown video, but basically what you can do is Cooler revolves around a boss monster in the form of a Unison called Golden Frieza Newfound Might. Basically, once you pull off that card's Empower and then use a -4, you're able to go for a 30k dual attack triple strike as early as turn 3. So by doing that, you're swinging for, again, 2 huge 30k triple strikes rather, and then for 1 energy you can play Cell Max for a 40k quad strike. That is a lot of damage to defend, especially if you've gone second and you're only on like 2 energy. That's a really big blitz that Cooler can go for whenever they draw their SCR. So I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on Cell Max before this, honestly myself included, but after seeing that kind of pressure be applied, it does seem like a really strong card. The one thing I think that green kind of falls to the wayside of is the red matchup. I think the red's always been a bit tough for green because, in my opinion, Dormant Potential is not super effective against red, because the problem with Dormant is whenever your opponent sends their biggest attack first, you kind of have to activate Dormant to get the maximum value out of the card. But then you still got to do something about that big attack that's coming your way, right? If they swing a 25k double strike or a 30k something at you, you know, through Dormant, you still have to do something about that attack to not take damage. But what Cooler can do is that same Unison, Frieza Newfound Might, is also a blocker, so you can Dormant block that you know, damage is being stunted, and then the final attack of their turn, you can take it if it's not lethal, or you can block, or you can negate, you can out combo, you can do a whole bunch of things to that last attack. But yeah, so this deck might be able to you know, be built in a way where it does match up decently into just about everything, but I think it's going to take a lot of practice, as you know, the gentleman who got second place at Australian Nationals was able to portray. But anyways, yeah, really cool deck with a really great result coming off the weekend. Wanted to talk a bit more about it. Then we have Blue Gohan. Now, this is for all my Storm fans out there. Any of you who miss Storm are probably going to really enjoy Gohan. I know a lot of us were looking at Gohan to be a pretty big meta contender coming out of Fighter's Ambition. Honestly, the archetypes out of Fighter's Ambition weren't all that great, and I think a lot of people thought that Gohan would be the best of the bunch. And honestly, that still probably holds true. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable putting Gohan in the Rogue tier. I'm not really comfortable putting it in meta, because it didn't do so hot at the recent national events. It did not manage to top the US Nationals. It did manage to squeak in 1 slot in the Australian Nationals. I'm not sure how it did at Asia or LatAm, but still, with those results, I am comfortable putting it in Rogue tier. But again, like I was saying, it's a glass cannon aggro deck in its truest form. This deck hits very hard, very fast, but it's not really much in the way of defensive, in my opinion, which again lends to its glass cannon aggro strategy. So if you miss the days of winning on turn 3, I wouldn't really say this deck can win on turn 2, but again, on turn 3, if you want to blitz your opponent, this is definitely a deck for you to pick up, in my opinion. I don't personally love this deck, but I did want to talk about it just because it is probably the best deck out of Fighter's Ambition and kind of fits that rogue identity perfectly, because again, it did manage to squeak 1 in the top cut in Australia, but not do too much else, although I know a lot of people are a pretty big fan of this deck. My one issue with the deck is, like, once you start going into the 3-card roulette, basically, you know, comboing your entire hand and then redrawing 3 cards, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever those 3 cards are, and if you don't have the best 3 cards for defense, your opponent can kind of do whatever they want with you. I know this is kind of like supposed to be a recommendation, and I'm kind of talking poorly about the deck. That's just one thing that I don't like about it, but again, I know there are a lot of you guys out there who really do enjoy the glass cannon aggro strategy, the storm days, so you'll probably really enjoy Gohan. And of course, Gohan's a fan favorite, so any chance that a player will have to play a Gohan deck, I'm sure they'll jump right at it. Then we have Golden Frieza, which is a really cool recommendation because we were testing this for this upcoming national tournament, and we also, or a few of us, played it last Nats. So yeah, almost came full circle with it. We ended up going with Crimson, obviously, but Golden Frieza is actually really interesting in this format, and it got some new toys to play with. One card that's not necessarily new, but is very interesting to look at with this leader is Gohan and Higher Dragon New Pals. This card has super insane synergy with the deck. So for the +1, play up to 1 yellow battle card with an energy cost of 1 from your drop. In rest mode, negated skill is for the turn. So basically that reads, play any of your Frieza armies, and then use your leader effect to pop them, draw a card, untap energy. That's a really great synergy. And then the permanent, during your turn, if you have a skillless battle card in play, this card gets plus 10,000 power. So that counts any of the cards you play off this card's +1. Or if you have a random blocker token sitting around from a Frieza Army Reinforcements, this thing is just a 15k attacker. So super good. You can protect it early game real easily just by leaving up 1 for riposte. So it's a really tanky unison in that regard, and you're going to typically empower it off into SS2 Gohan Z Fighter later on in the game. And yeah, that's the cool thing too, because Gohan Z Fighter is a bit energy expensive, especially in the yellow deck, but Frieza getting that energy back is really good. Another card I want to talk about in relation to this deck is Gohan Flash of Brilliance. This is a boss monster package that came out of Dawn of the Z Legends. Wasn't really that great, albeit yellow was kind of fringe, considering that most of Zenkai series has been blue and red dominated. But this is a really strong boss monster, offers you double strike dual attack, has barrier, offers removal. It does end up costing 4 energy at the end of the day, because you do have to play a Z deck battle card and then play a pan from your Z energy and then play this card. So by the time you do all that, it has costed you 4 energy. But again, Golden Frieza getting you that energy back just makes this way stronger because it costs you less. Like, you're doing more with your energy, or I guess you should say you're getting more energy to play with total. So, you know, that could be energy saved for defense or just energy to do more things aggressively. Like, it's a really cool leader to play with. And honestly, Golden Frieza will just always be in the conversation as a strong explosive rogue deck, especially now that it's gotten more options for self-awakening, namely Vegeta surmounting the impossible. Like, that's just a really great card for Frieza. It's a really great card for a lot of decks, but it's particularly good for Golden Frieza, so you can get to your awakened side, explode your hand size, and then pop off to the moon. So yeah, really fun deck. Definitely want to recommend you guys try it out. Then we have Android 21. Shout out to Rohit, who managed to top US Nationals with this deck. I do have his deck profile here on the channel for anyone who wants to check it out. But yeah, Android 21, basically your tried and true blue-green control strategy. It got a lot of new tools to play with out of set 19 Fighter's Ambition, because Fighter's Ambition introduced just a lot of really good generic blue cards. One of the main ones would probably be Gohan Power Reclaim, just an incredible card both against low to the ground stuff like Gogeta and Sin Shenron, but also for 3 energy, hitting any battle card in the game short of barrier while establishing a 20k triple attacker is insane. It's also highly relevant that it gets played during your opponent's turn, because going into your next turn, if it survives, this gets around your own field card's summoning sickness effect, because again, it was played during your opponent's turn, so it's not impacted by Android 21's scheme. Another cool thing you can do that Rohit actually pointed out to us that he doesn't personally love because it's a bit cheesy, but if you like playing cheesy decks, this is an option for you. You can play Gohan Beyond the Ultimate SCR to burn your opponent for 4 life. How does that work? Well, Android 21 revolves around a win condition through Android 21 Bad Omen, in which you can play 3 copies of the card in 1 turn, and each time you play a Bad Omen, you're able to crit one of your energy and then crit one of your opponent's lives. Again, playing 3 of those in 1 turn, that's 3 life you get to do that with. And then you can play Gohan Beast to crit them for the final life, which is, again, a very cheesy play. It is a bit weak to certain counterplays, but it is something you can do if you own the Gohan Beast SCR, if you pulled it out of a box or a case, and you happen to have an Android 21 deck sitting around, or you're interested in Android 21, that is something you can totally try out. And the final one to talk about today is Machika Bora. You guys know that I'm a pretty big fan of this deck. I did post a profile just a few months ago. I was testing this for, I think it was Gen Con. This leader is really cool. It's got a lot of cool tools, and it's gotten some new toys. Supreme Kai of Time Mastermind's Pawn is a recent tournament pack card that is specifically made for this deck. Servant auto limit 1 when this card's played, or you gain control of an opponent's battle card. Your opponent sends 1 card from their hand to their warp. So again, a bit of hand control, pairs nice into Crimson. Activate main for a black, you can basically play it and dump 2 Dragon Balls if you need to get awakened. And then of course there is Cumber SCR, which is such an insanely strong card. There's just no established black deck right now to really take advantage of it, but Machika Bora could possibly be that deck. And the reason I think Machika Bora is in a pretty good spot is because Crimson Goku is a very drop area centric deck, maybe more so than we've seen in the past. Like, there's always been a fair amount of drop area interruption in the game, and there's even some generic stuff that any deck could sideboard, like Toa Twisted Sister, for example. But I don't know, I don't think decks have been like too drop area centric to the point where that would be like a really good side deck call. But if you were to play a black deck that's gotten new support recently and has a broken SCR and happens to hit drop area stuff inadvertently, that might be a good pick going into this format where, again, Crimson's really strong but relies on a drop area setup to get awakened. That could be really solid. You could also do some things to, let's say, SS4 Gogeta. You can mess with their drop area as well. They like to combo things out of the drop area to make Z energy with like Rush Tech Vegeta and stuff. So you interrupt them a bit there. You also mess with their overwhelm count for their SS4 Vegito SCR. I don't think this does too much to Sin Shenron, but if you can build a deck to have a good red matchup, you might be in a pretty good spot. But overall, guys, those are decks I want to recommend to you guys in today's video. If you guys have any other recommendations for a Rogue in this format, definitely drop them down in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.